Alright, got my little assistant here to help me out with this video today. He's going to address some things that I've been getting comments on in the comment section here lately. People saying that my snakes are going to kill me, or it's only a matter of time, that they're sizing me up. Oh, of course. Well, that's perfect timing, huh? This is more of a danger than, or a reality of the situation than getting killed or eaten by your snake. The bigger concern is getting shit on. Anyway, yeah, people have been saying, oh, your snakes are going to kill you, they're going to eat you, it's only a matter of time. They're sizing you up. When really this is not the case. I don't know why I'm still filming that. She's gonna shit. Oh, you're gonna track shit on me, bud. Don't do that. Don't do that. Alright. Well, this is gonna make the video more difficult. Got a paper towel here somewhere. I had one. I had to clean that up in a bit. Let's wipe your butt. Okay. Well, alright. My little helpers decided to make things more difficult. Anyways, people saying my snakes are going to kill me and eat me, and I just wanted to kind of put things into perspective, that these animals aren't really bloodthirsty monsters. They're not just cold-blooded killers. They want to eat appropriate sized prey items for the most part, and that's it. They want to eat, satisfy their hunger. They want to breed, satisfy their desire to reproduce, and for the most part they want to be left alone. They don't want conflict. In fact, they go out of their way to avoid conflict. Now, as a keeper, there are certain things you have to be aware of. Mainly, the feeding response. Your greatest opportunity to be bitten and attacked is during a snake's feeding response. Now, in captivity, which I'm primarily talking about snakes in captivity. I'm not talking about snakes out in the wild. They're a different issue. That's not really what we're concerned with here. But in captivity, their feeding response is kind of it's a conditioned, learned behavior. Most keepers will feed their snakes in their enclosure. Other keepers, or there's a small percentage of keepers that do it differently for a couple reasons. There's pros and cons to doing it differently. There's pros and cons to feeding them in their enclosure, but for the most part, that's the easiest thing to do. You feed them in their enclosure. Now, what this ends up doing is conditioning them to expecting food when their enclosure door opens. The snake learns that when it's sitting in its cage, when it sees that door open, it could potentially be an opportunity to feed. So, what ends up happening is the snake has what we've termed in the hobby as a feeding response. Meaning the snake is on edge, or not on edge, but it's hyper-focused looking for food. Which means this is when it's in its hunting mode. This is when it's going to strike it. The first sign of movement, or something with a heat signature. These animals have heat pits where they can see basically an infrared heat signatures, heat patterns of warm objects, and they're ready to go. They're ready, if they're hungry, to strike at the first thing that moves when their cage door opens. Now, as responsible, educated keepers, we learn this behavior and we take measures to nullify it. We do what's called tap training or hook training, where When you're first opening the snake's enclosure, like over here, you'll take some sort of an object. It could be a snake hook. I use a snake stick. Let me see if I have it on hand. Where is it? Right there. You see that? That's my little homemade snake stick. And you just kind of tap the snake on the face, on the nose lightly. You don't need to bonk them or hurt them. Just a light rub. Maybe I'll demonstrate that one of these days, but you want to let them know that this is not an interaction with the prey item. That kind of snaps them out of it, because that's not how a prey item would approach this snake. Once they're rubbed on the face, it snaps them out of that feeding mode and sends them into a, whoa, what's going on here mode. This isn't feeding time. There's something else I have to be aware of or taking into consideration. What's this thing bonking me? Or not bonking. What's this thing rubbing me on the face? Oh, okay. This isn't a feeding opportunity. And the snake's mind is snapped out of its feeding response. Now, you do have to be able to read your snake a little bit to assure that the feeding response has been broken. Some snakes are a little bit more food driven than others. It takes a little bit more of a effort to break them of that. But for the most part, that's how it's done. You break them of their feeding response. Typically, you'll take an extra precaution. I like to direct their face away from me before I reach in to grab them out. Just a bit of an extra precaution. To where if somehow they were to strike at you, you have a bit of an extra second to see them have to redirect their head to point towards you. That gives you more time to respond and have a reaction, to get out of the way or close the door, have some proper defense. But for the most part, you break their feeding response and your pet snake is ready to come out and interact. Most times. There are times when the snake is not in the mood to react or to come out and interact. You know, these snakes can't communicate with us in words. Some days they just don't feel like coming out and they'll let you know. And you have to respect that. Like, a snake can't tell you if it has a headache and it's not feeling good and doesn't want to be messed with. Or it can't tell you if it's sprained one of its ribs and it's recovering and in a little bit of pain, you know? It can't tell you these mild irritations it might be dealing with. So when your snake is giving you signals and is really adamant that it doesn't want to be messed with, just, leave it alone. Give it a few days. But for the most part, 99% of snakes are going to be like the ones you see me handling. There are a small percentage of snakes out there that have a bit more of a fussy attitude. Some of those are wild-caught snakes. Others are just, it's some kind of genetic trait. Just like with people, some people are, happy-go-lucky. Other people's are grumpy. They don't want to mess with other people. Snakes are the same way. They come in different demeanors and attitudes. For the most part, 99% of them are going to be workable. Even that 1% of grumpy snakes, it's really, the snake is just uncertain. It's shy, it's nervous. And it takes a bit more of an expert keeper to interact and bring that snake around. Even those snakes can be brought around if you have the proper keeper and he puts in the proper time and effort working with that snake. Those snakes can be just as handleable and workable in the right hands. Now, there are certain things you aren't going to want to do with those kinds of snakes. You're not going to want to bring them out to shows or let kids come up and handle them. I have one such snake like that where I know I can handle her, but she's very nervous, she's very shy, and I don't really let others interact with her. Because these snakes are smart and they do know the difference between the person they're used to working with and new people. I've had instances where friends of the family have brought kids over to interact or to check out my snakes, and I can tell that the snakes are a lot more nervous around strangers, especially high-strung kids that are little balls of energy. The snake picks up on that. The snake can read your energy, and they know, oh, these children are not the same stable, calm energy of a person I'm used to interacting with. These kids are, much more unpredictable, and that makes the snake a little bit more nervous if it's not used to being around such people. At least mine. There are snakes that are comfortable with that also. 3 of my snakes are comfortable around pretty much anybody, but I do have one that is not really comfortable around a bunch of strangers, so I respect that. But really, these snakes are not looking to kill and eat you. They don't, for the most part, want much to do with you. My biggest girl is pretty inquisitive. She will come up to me and check me out. But, yeah. The feeding response is the main thing with 99% of your ticks that you have to worry about. There is a small percentage of snakes that do have a bit more of a nervous disposition. You have to pay and put in special precautions. Other than that, the only other thing you'd have to worry about is if you have male reticulated pythons during breeding season. If they pick up on female pheromones, you might have a bit of a aggressive animal on your hand. Again, that's probably a situation that a more experienced keeper is going to encounter. Don't get multiple snakes if you're a beginner. Start out with one, a small baby preferably, and grow with it. Learn its behaviors, learn how to read it, learn the rules, learn the proper protocols, learn how to properly manage their feeding response, and really how to feed them. Right? That's your greatest opportunity of getting bitten during feeding time. Where you either mess up or, well, yeah, clearly you would be the one to mess up in that situation. The snake's just doing what the snake does. So, these snakes aren't looking to just sight. They're not buying their time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to kill and eat me. As long as they're kept properly fed and well cared for, the snake's just going to do what it's doing right now. Whether it's 5 feet long or 20 feet long. The snake's attitude and disposition is pretty much the same. I mean, the snake does grow in confidence the bigger it gets. It might be a little bit more intimidating to work with the bigger it gets, but that's on the keeper to learn and grow with their snake as it grows. Learn how to properly manage it. Learn how to not be intimidated. Take the right protocols and precautions. But yeah, that's basically it. Just a few things I wanted to touch on since I've been getting comments. Really, it's people that don't understand. They don't have any experience working with these snakes. And I can understand where their mindset's at. It comes from a little bit of a place of fear. Fear and misunderstanding. It'd be the same way if I was invited to go swimming with great white sharks, or hanging out with some tiger in a tiger enclosure, the owner or trainer might be like, you just have to follow a few basic simple rules, and in my mind I'd be like, no way, man. That thing is totally capable of killing me. And it'd be basically because I don't understand the situation. I have fear and misunderstanding. But obviously people do work with tigers. People do go swimming with great whites. Not saying it's the safest thing, but these people have an understanding of how to do it. They know how to read the animals. They know how to properly manage the situation. It's the same thing with these. It's really probably the same thing with every animal. I don't believe animals are bloodthirsty killers by nature. They have certain instincts to hunt and survive. You know, cats might. I've seen cats play and kill food just for fun. But even that's probably just to keep their skills sharp. I don't know. I'm getting off topic here. We're dealing with snakes. We aren't talking about cats. Alright. That's it for this video. I hope I touched on a few things that might be informative. That's it. See ya. We got a mess to clean up here.